right, we are into the brand new week. It's a Monday evening. 8 o'clock is the time when you're watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition with myself, Naledi Mulao. Thank you so much for joining us, with you until 11 o'clock. So last year, former broadcaster Tom London got the country talking about the state of our public health facilities, particularly the state of Helen Joseph. That video with some of the complaints that he's raised, the quality of linen and beds, the treatment from some of the staffers and doctors and so much more, the infrastructure at the hospital, that video going viral across the country. And then, of course, that leading to the health ombudsman looking into what exactly is going on at that hospital. And so they have released their findings, and we're going to get into that in a moment. But we're also getting your view on this one. Is enough being done to continue the sort of oversight over the state of our health facilities? Send us a WhatsApp 072-110-5584 or give us a call 010-594-6010. We start off though with a quick look at your headlines. Charges have been withdrawn against 2 accused in the Luikisiki massacre.
The only way to fix it is to fire the health MEC, because she hasn't managed to turn things around, and she's been in that position for some time now.
The DA is calling for heads to roll following the release of investigative reports into the dire state of the Helen Joseph Hospital. And some advocacy organizations say assertions by the finance minister that new sources of funding are needed for the SRD grant are simply not true. 2 people have died after a Johannesburg Metro Police vehicle crashed into pedestrians while responding to a reported shooting between rival taxi associations in Soweto. All right, let's start here this evening. 2 of the 8 people arrested for the murder of 18 people in Luikisiki in the Eastern Cape are now free after charges against them were withdrawn. The 6 remaining accused will appear in the Mthatha High Court on the 14th of April. This is in connection with the mass shooting in September 2024. Newzroom Afrika DStv filed this report.
The courtroom was packed to capacity when Senior Prosecutor Nkululeko Mathenjwa announced the withdrawal of all charges against Lwando Abi and Zenande Baya. Spokesperson for the NPA in the province, Luxolo Kyali, says the decision came about following further investigation into the case.
If you remember, the last time the matter was postponed, it was for completion of investigations. Now that the investigations have been completed and an indictment drawn, some of the things that came out of the investigations necessitated that these charges be withdrawn against the 2 accused persons. That doesn't mean the others are going to go out scot-free. It was just meant to ensure that justice is served, because all we do when we enroll a matter in court, we enroll it based on the investigations, on the evidence that is contained in the docket. So the evidence that we had against these 2 necessitated that the charges be withdrawn.
While the families of the victims are keen to see the wheels of justice turn more quickly, they say they prefer to have everything done by the book and will wait patiently.
We don't want any stone left unturned. So we don't want a situation whereby the state loses the case simply because they have not done their work properly. We would love them to do whatever they have to do in order to make sure that this case is successful.
The NPA says the accused have now been furnished with the full details of the charges against them relating to the mass murder. Their charge sheets now have additional counts of murder and kidnapping.
Today, all the accused, through their attorney, were served with a copy of the indictment with all the charges. And in those charges, on top of the 18 counts of murder, there's also a count of murder that relates to the murder of the person that was killed in KwaBhaca. And there's also a charge of kidnapping, because during that incident, the children of that deceased were kidnapped and kept in one room against their will.
When the case resumes next month, trial dates are expected to be outlined, and the families of the victims believe that will bring them closer to the answers they're desperate for. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Luikisiki at the Luikisiki Regional Court in the Eastern Cape.
So police are investigating a case of culpable homicide after a JMPD vehicle crashed into pedestrians in Soweto, resulting in 2 deaths. The officers were responding to the blocking of roads, allegedly by the taxi association Nanduwe, to prevent rival association Wata from operating certain routes. Newzroom Afrika's Nqobile Madlala has more.
A taxi boss is among 2 people who died in a crash in White City in Soweto. Johannesburg Metro Police say there were also reports of shooting in the area. Officers responding to the complaints collided with another vehicle and hit pedestrians.
There's actually 7 people involved in this accident. There's 2 JMPD officers who were in their vehicle, and within the other vehicle there was a driver and a passenger as well. And then we also know that there's 3 pedestrians who have been involved in the accidents. It's a total of 7, and unfortunately from that 7 is 2 fatalities that have been confirmed.
49-year-old Nkele Damaria Sehube also died in the crash.
Then bamenza. Then before sifike bhaka washonela phakathi eambulanceni. Mase ngabuza ukuthi yini inkinga. Bathi ubleedele ngaphakathi. Angikhoya nokuthi usisi wami kwenzakaleni, angazi nokuthi kwenzakaleni ngoba ngimthole awile laphayana imoto ilapho achayiswe yimoto lapho phansi.
The 2 taxi associations say their dispute relates to a court order relating to routes.
Icourt doba i-ruling ukuthi funeka sisebenze futhi nathi ithi singayiqoshi Nanduwe until arbitration. Ithi u-GP wathatha isinqumo esirong because saka ku-arbitration bengafanele ethathe lesinqumo. Then isibangele masivuka namhlanje kuseni iNanduwe nodrayiva bawo bafimba imoto bablokha umgwaqo.
No, asivumi leyo. Because oqala le court order yakhona kuningi okusolakalayo ngayo. uWilson lo khiphe le court order le judge sibona ngathi lenze okukhulu ubugebengu noqophololo elibenze phakathi kwalento, because ukhiphe i-judgment without ukubiza wonke ama-stakeholder ka-government ayekade ekhona ezosho ukuthi lo msebenzi wabo bani.
Meanwhile, a Wata taxi driver was also kidnapped and robbed in the early hours of Monday.
Bekwa phakathi nendawo, mangibekwa phakathi nendawo kwangenwa yedwa la kwangenwa yedwa ngemuva. Uma bengena ngemuva bayiphendula imoto kwayibona abayidrivayo bahamba nami. Uma behamba masamba la endleleni bathatha ifoni bafuna imali bathi ngisebenze emalini akuzi imali. Mase beyithathile imali sengihamba nje ngihamba ngiyashawa ke la endleleni.
The Johannesburg Metro Police have confirmed that they will be investigating a case of culpable homicide following the incident. Meanwhile, SAPS has urged those who heard gunshots to come forward. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I am Nqobile Madlala in Soweto.
That's right. So Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has blamed budget constraints and wage disagreements or agreements for the growing number of unfilled posts at the Helen Joseph Hospital. Probes by the Health Standards Compliance and Ombudsman Office have agreed that some claims made by about the dire state of the facility are true. Investigations were initiated last year after a patient, Tom London, a former broadcaster, recorded a viral video detailing neglect and apparent rude behavior by staff. The minister says they are trying their best to write to Treasury to fill the posts.
We are not allowed to hire anybody until you get permission from the Minister of Public Service and Administration. Even when the vacancy was filled and somebody leaves that vacancy, you can't just fill it automatically. You have got to get that permission from the Minister of Public Service and Administration. It is not a secret that in quite a number of provinces, they've ran out of the budget many times. And I said part of the problem, that provinces find themselves in this situation is that salary negotiations are done at the national level. and an agreement are signed there. And quite often, Treasury will say, we have agreed on 10%. We will pay for 5%, the other will be paid for by provinces. And that's what put them in trouble. And we wanted that to stop. But at the present moment, the vacancies are not filled because of budgetary constraints.
Well, Motsoaledi admits the hospital has been without a permanent CEO for some time, which gives him sleepless nights.
When you listen to the report, the CEO of the hospital left long ago, and they kept on putting acting people. When you have got people who act all the time, many of them don't believe they've got authority, and they don't coordinate things. So things were not coordinated from one sector to the other because of the issue of leadership. Yes, it is true, we accept that, and it's something that will give one sleepless nights. Why a big hospital like that will lack in leadership?
Well, for more on this report, we are now joined by the Health Ombudsman, Professor Taule Mokoena. Professor Mokoena, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think that a really great place for us to start, just for the benefit of our viewer, Prof, if you'll allow me, is perhaps to go back to remind our viewers quickly of that video that was sent out by Thomas Holmes, that former broadcaster known popularly as Tom London, that really got everyone talking on social media. Let's give you a quick reminder of what it was that he shared while being admitted at the Helen Joseph Hospital.
So I'm very lucky to be talking to you on this phone. Let's go into Ward 8. The doctors here, you give doctors a bad name. All of you, despicable human beings, right? Here, taps. What, do you think it works? Nah, that tap doesn't work. Let's check the ceilings out. Well, they're peeling and flaking and stuffed, right? All of this is rusted. This is my bed. The plug doesn't work, it's blown. That's all rusted.
Oh, well, that was the video that was released by Tom London last year, showing us what it was that he was seeing inside the hospital. Today, though, with the release of this report by the Health Ombudsman that has looked into neglect and maltreatment at the hospital, he's responded to that report, and this is what he had to say.
I would say that the report is excellent, and I'm very, very happy to see this report. I think this is one of the first times in our country's history where we've taken a situation that is dire and we've opened it up for proper inspection. I know the media want to use the word damning report, but I'd like to use the words honest and open. The Ombuds Department as well as OHSC have been open and honest about what's going on inside Helen Joseph. The Minister and the Ministry has been open and honest about what's going on inside Helen Joseph, and I think that's very refreshing. As a South African, I'm very, very happy to see that we've discussed the problem amongst each other, and we will find solutions and we'll fix it.
All right, so let's chat now with Professor Taule Mokoena, who is, of course, our health ombudsman speaking to us. So, Prof, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I listened to the clip there of Tom London, and essentially he says the report is excellent. And I wonder if at this time when we reflect on what this report actually means for those that use Helen Joseph, but also on the broader public health system, if we can say that that viral video actually did South Africans a bit of a favor, where we're able to get an honest reflection on the state of our healthcare.
Good evening, lady. Thank you very much. I think that's a good summary that you and Thomas Holmes is giving. That you may say it's a wake-up call. However, because he's one of you. One of yours, in other words, he's a media operator. He's been able to put his voice up there in the public domain, and therefore ours also to be in the public domain, in the sense that we've investigated other hospitals in the past, and we've made some observations, but they don't always get the public attention that this is getting. However, this is not to negate the fact that, yes, the hospital is, I wouldn't say dire straight, but has got lots of problems. And part of it is that the hospital is older than most of us who are alive today. It was built in 1944, and there hasn't been constant maintenance. And certainly there hasn't been maintenance in the past 20, 30 years. And therefore the infrastructure is crumbling, as he had shown there. However, I want to respond to the attitude of doctors. In the main, the doctors that he described as treating patients like cockroaches, the other patients that were in the hospital during the time he was there, they disavow that. And he himself, when we interviewed him, because that's where we started, he said that he's got no problems with the clinical care that he received there, and that the main issue was the infrastructure and so on. There are some other smaller issues about clinical care which were not as coming as quickly as he would have wanted, but that's par for the course. That's how the system works. But some of the issues that he raised, apart from the infrastructure, like, for instance, having to be bedded in the emergency department for extended period of about 3 days, is true. He's not the only one. There are lots of other patients that get kept in the emergency department. Now, the emergency department, by its nature, is not a very good hoteling environment. And that occurred because the wards, the turnover in the wards was not properly managed. It could have been managed better by the staff so that patients don't have to remain in the emergency department for extended periods.
Yeah.
Now, some other issues that he raised were not necessarily of a clinical nature. In other words, that would affect the treatment per se. But the hoteling is bad, very bad. And that applies to most of our hospitals that we have investigated, both in Gauteng and in the KZN. For instance, in January, I was at Wentworth Hospital, which is also of the same kind of age. It was built as an army recuperation hospital during World War II. And then there's another hospital that we had investigated earlier in Durban, at the Addington Hospital, and we also investigated a hospital in PE, the provincial hospital in PE. They're also not.
Yeah.
They're not really well kept, yeah.
Yeah, I must say this, and I think that anyone that's listening to you can agree that the example of Helen Joseph, as you list some of the many hospitals that, of course, you've been inspecting, is one of many troubled hospitals. But this opportunity that we have right now is to really zone in on some of the very specific sort of challenges and how they impact the treatment that a patient does get. I mean, surely toilets that seemingly are out of order in an emergency ward or in a hospital ward, one would say is not necessarily the most important of troubles, but this is about a hygiene in a space that needs to be hygienic for the sake of one's health. So who do we point the finger at there when we're talking about this is simple management of the resources as they sit in the infrastructure that's there? Who failed to come to the party?
Is the hospital, senior hospital management, as well as the provincial, senior provincial health management. Now, part of the issues, which is what Dr. Mtswaledi always cries about, is that the hospitals are not given the authority to do the management. They don't have the delegation that enables them to do the management. Having said all that, in most of the hospitals, the management is old. It rather is not permanent. There are lots of acting managers, and in some cases for extended periods. And the whole cadre of senior managers, you'd find that senior management is being undertaken by acting people. Now, acting people don't have the authority, nor do they have the appetite to exert the authority that is vested on the positions that they're acting on. So this has been going on for a long time, and therefore it's not surprising that the maintenance of the hospitals is not up to scratch. I want to hasten to say that the professionals, the nurses and the doctors, despite all of that, they're doing a tremendously good work. And more people, a lot of people get out to the hospitals having recovered, despite the poor hoteling that is common in most of these hospitals.
Yeah, Prof, I'm going to let you go, but I think just before I do, maybe just take, you know, for the viewers, the sort of recommendations that urgently need to be noted. I mean, one of the things that you talked about as well as you released the report was frequent washing machine breaking down at the facility, which means that you've got a shortage of clean linen. I mean, you're at a hospital. Imagine you're put into a bed where the linen, you know, you're not confident that linen is clean. It's quite a terrifying thought. Food shortages, and I believe that also being because some service providers simply had not been remunerated. I mean, these are massive issues. So the recommendations that you put on the table, Prof, before we let you go.
Well, essentially that the Department of Health, the Gauteng Department of Health, should appoint senior cadre of managers and supervise them and upskill them, and that also there's 30% vacancy rate in the hospitals among the clinical staff, and if there's 30% shortage, it means that those that are there, they are working under duress, and the patients or people get into a state of burnout, and if there's burnout, there will be less attentive, and errors can happen.
Yeah. Prof, we could talk for a very long time, and we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for certainly going in to investigate what is happening at Helen Joseph. A really good litmus test of what the rest of our public health facilities look like. This is as the ongoing discussion of NHI continues to brew in the country on how we execute that, and when you look at the state of some of our health facilities. Taking your call, 0105946010. Let's hear from Simon in Pretoria. Simon, good evening.
Hi, my lady. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Talk to us. What are your thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I wanted to leave numbers, but it's fine. Yeah, I'm just from your topic watching right now on.
Yes, Simon, go ahead. Your line is a bit choppy, but I'm going to give you a chance. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Yeah, I was just querying about the situation that I experienced at the George Mokari Hospital of February.
Okay. Simon, that line really not great. You're talking about George Mokari Hospital. Hopefully we can try and get you on another line to hear from you. But Simon calling in there from Pretoria. Send us WhatsApps as well, 0721105584. Let's continue to get reactions, though, to this report by the Office of the Health Standards Compliance released today. It's revealed serious contraventions of the prescribed norms and standards regulations for quality and safety and various other applicable laws aimed at ensuring safe and quality healthcare services. This is just at the Helen Joseph Hospital. Let's speak now to Rich Siqina, who is, of course, speaking to us as part of the Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Union. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Richard. Good evening to you. I mean, your reaction to this report, is it a well-qualified report into the state of Helen Joseph and also a great example of our health facilities?
Thank you very much, Naledi. Good evening to yourself, your team there, and also the viewers at home. It is a well-qualified report, and exactly it is a reflection of what is actually happening in all our healthcare facilities, public sector in particular. Things are dire, Naledi. I want to tell you now, I'm doing bedside nursing. Every day I'm on duty. I know what is happening on the ground. And I hear Prof saying maybe we need to hire senior people in positions of authority. But when you zoom closer to how things are run, in particular here in Gauteng, the budget, Naledi, is centralized. It is controlled in central office, in Gauteng Department of Health. And CEOs in different facilities, no matter how qualified and patriotic is that particular CEO, all of them are presiding over institutions that they don't have control of the budget of those particular institutions. At the moment, Naledi, as we speak, we don't have plastics, we don't have bread. We are going into our own pockets. There is no, at the moment, like it's CEOs are sent into facilities to say, make that particular facility work. Let me make an example. There are people who retire, some of them die, some of them resign, others are dismissed, and those people are occupying posts that are funded. But as we speak now, we are all waiting for financial year in April. There's no money in terms of cash flow. There are certain facilities, Naledi, that have actually, we have millions of money that went back to the coffers of provincial treasurer, from Telemogwerane, Liratong, Paragonat Hospital, because those monies were whenever you tell us for different reasons. But as we speak, those monies are nowhere to be found. The system is we are borrowing each other now. There's no money to actually pay those guys who are delivering bread to our facilities. There is no money for overtime. Buildings are dilapidated. It's even difficult now, Naledi, to fix a handle, the door handle in our facility. So who do you blame here? Because the budget is centralized. Even if you can hire the most qualifying patriotic CEO who's going to call and talk to us as workers on the ground and make sure that we go out there, excel and produce quality. But what do you do, Naledi, if you have gross shortage of staff and gross shortage of material resources?
You know what the health minister talked about today was the salary negotiations happening at a national level. So, you know, even the calls that are being made for Treasury to allow for more resources to go into the Department of Health so that there is infrastructure maintenance and the employing of more staff. But the issue that you're raising is the centralizing of the budget. So the money certainly could come in from the finance minister on Wednesday, but the concern is Will it reach the various hospitals? Let's take a look at a few WhatsApps that have come in on this discussion. 072-110-5584 as we respond to the Ombudsman's report into the state of Helen Joseph. In a moment for us to reflect on other health facilities. Anonymous says, I took my father to Mahikeng Provincial Hospital in December 2024 after suffering a stroke. I was told to stand in line before opening a file. I tried to explain to them it's an emergency and the patient is in the car. They didn't care until I called the CEO. That's when they started to take me seriously. In Mahikeng Provincial Hospital, you need to know someone before they help. I even had to help myself to take him out the car. No wheelchairs. I had to use the bed. That's a horrendous, horrendous position to be in. Anonymous, thank you so much for joining us. What if you don't know the people in power? Selema Chokwe says, the nurses and doctors treat patients like outcasts. Complaint about a staff member is treated as refusing treatment and you are immediately discharged. A hopeless situation. Selema, thank you so much for that. Let's see, one more. Spiwe Ngube says, mixed experience. I was admitted at South Rand Hospital for the delivery of my baby boy. The nurses neglected me overnight until the doctor came the next morning and said the baby was tired and I needed an emergency cesarean procedure. Goodness. I was taken to Charlotte Maxeke by ambulance. From the moment I entered the ambulance until I walked out of Charlotte Maxeke after delivery, I was treated like royalty. Okay. Though I passed out during the Caesar, the doctors did everything in their power to save mother and child. I'm a happy mother of a 9-year-old boy. Spiwe, that's a positive story, and we're glad for that as well. Yeah, so those are some of the WhatsApps. I mean, Rich, talk to me about what you want to hear from the Finance Minister on Wednesday. Calls are going to be made by the Department of Health for more resources to go into our hospitals, but is it really going to fix the problem?
Not necessarily, Nalet, because we have already told, by the way, these politicians in particular, when they get an opportunity to speak on the public domain, it's so frustrating because you'll hear the Minister Mzwaledi complaining like us. You'll hear the NEC complaining like us. No one is coming up with a solution to say, what are we going to do? It's just lamenting and lamenting. For example, what they will call for more resources, but we've been told already that the hike compared to the previous budget is going to be about 5% in terms of how each and every hospital is going to get that particular budget. And we have already looked into how much is it going to, that particular budget is going to go into salaries of employees. Since we are going to get 5.5 wage hike, already now it's the budget for financial year 2024-2025, by January it was depleted. And we are expecting to say this year by November we won't be having money because there's not much of a difference the budget is going to make. Remember, we already have accruals. We already have service deliveries who are delivering stock to us, material resources and stuff like that on debt. We're still going to look into that particular budget and start by paying that. Some of us in our facilities, we have nurses, doctors, and other workers who have worked overtime because of the shortage of staff. By April, we need to start. When this budget comes into our pocket, we still need. We have like about billions of money that we have to pay accruals first. Then already we're in a dire situation, and in the absence of the best, mediocre becomes the best. You'll work with that particular skeleton staff. Those of us, those people from different locations, who are from poor backgrounds and who are beneficiaries of public healthcare system, are still going to suffer. All I'm saying as a unionist is workers on the ground. I've never seen anyone, Naledi, taking the employer, the politicians to court to say that gross shortage of staff and gross shortage of material resources is killing workers on the ground, not only the morale of workers, but it's also killing poor, innocent souls on the ground. It's not nice for us as well, Naledi, to go out there knowing that our existence is to save lives, but you go there and you are hopeless. Then patients die as easy as that, and politicians don't care.
Sure. Rich Sitrina there, he says, in some cases at these health facilities, the staff are buying bread for patients out of their own pockets. are running out of plastics, digging into their own pockets to bring some of these resources into the facility. Let's see some of the WhatsApps, perhaps just two more. Let's see, Tembam Tembu says, a nurse friend advised me to go to Dr. Yusuf Dadu Hospital in Krugersdorp for a dental procedure. I went there today and the service was excellent. The attitude of young doctors, unbelievable. I'm going to write a letter of appreciation to the minister. So good to hear that there is positive feedback as well that's being given to us. Anonymous says, I went for a hernia operation in December 2024 after waiting for almost a year. Was booked in for a whole week before getting the operation because of a lack of space. Before operation, doctor was playing Candy Crush and did not even scrub in. Goodness. Sitting now with huge complications. That's our lives. That's the reality of where we are. Well, we're going to take a quick call. Anonymous is on the line. Anonymous, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Talk to us.
Yes. You know what? Let me just ask, what is the work of public works? Because nowadays it seems as if just the main public works, the people who are doing public work is now the tenders, and those tenders are the ones that are causing dire situations in public institutions. People are getting money, a lot of money, but doing nothing in hospitals, in clinics, in schools, in all these public institutions. Now you tell the politicians to scrap these tenders, you are going to end up like Babita. Thanks very much.
Yeah, that is such an interesting question. Where does public works step into all of this? And perhaps a question for Minister Dean McPherson. Thank you so much for that, Anonymous. We're going to leave it there, of course, and it's been such an insightful conversation. I do hope that it does continue on X, though, at Newzroom 405. Thank you to Rich Sitrina, who is, of course, President of the Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Union. And thank you as well to Professor Taulo Mokoena, who is the Health Ombudsman, speaking to us there. After the Office of Health Standards Compliance and Health released that report, or those reports, into the state of Helen Joseph Hospital. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. We're going to take a short break. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Juanita.
Hi.
Hi, this is...
I was just going to say I can't hear anything.
No, it's all good. This is Naledi. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, good. Will you say your full name for me so I can pronounce it the way you do? I don't bugger it up.
It's Juanita de Preez.
De Preez, okay. Got it. Thank you so much. We're coming out of the ad break, then you and I will have our chat, okay?
Thank you.
Awesome. welcome back. So, Build One South Africa says it's written to the National Prosecuting Authority to verify the accuracy of the National Sex Offenders Register. The party says the number of convicted offenders and those still on trial is suspiciously low. So last month, the Justice Department missed its deadline to release the offenders list, citing legislation that prohibits publication of information. Well, Action Society's operational manager, Juanita joins us for their reaction on these developments. Juanita, good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we could even get into some of the numbers, which I'll do immediately, and it's so hard to process because you're thinking about people that, for the most part, are actually really still very much in our society, which is quite possible, really quite frightening. But what do you make of this debate around whether or not the list of sex offenders, so the National Register for Sex Offenders, should and should not be made public? Where are you sitting on that matter?
Good evening. Yes, Action Society has been saying from the very beginning that criminals' rights should not weigh more than the victims' rights. And that is why we've always been of the opinion that the sex offenders register should be publicly available.
Yeah.
Not just you need to see the whole list. And that is why we were so excited when the minister completely unexpectedly announced that it will be available end of February. We thought, wow, all of our years of campaigning for this, and finally it's paid off. But then, like everybody, we were, it was, if it sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true. So yes, we were very disappointed when we realized it is not going to be published as a whole by the end of February. We saw the interview she did, I believe it was here on Newzroom Afrika, where she said it will just be available to schools, the bodies that work with children, the whole list. So we do not have those rights. So there is no way for us to see who is on there so far. So it is a big frustration, and we think it was a bit sneaky of the minister to say and get everybody excited and praise her and say, wow, she's moving in the right direction, just for her to turn around and say, no, now it's going to be in phases. We know how long it takes to have laws changed. So that is the next phase. Now there will be processes and input and so on. We don't know. Is it going to be 20 more years before just normal, the public can see the list? We don't know. And we also, we sent questions to her, to her office. We CC'd everybody who needs to be CC'd. We haven't even received a receipt of the email. So in the interview, she did explain, and it does sound like she is truly concerned, but I think her hands might be tied by red tape. But the red tape, I don't think it should be there.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets to get quite tricky, right? Because that red tape, what was it, the confidentiality and disclosure provisions, it really gets quite complex. But what the red tape does is it gives us also, a sense of what is being prioritized by, the legislative framework. You talk about the state of schools, and I see here that 16,000 teachers in our country have a criminal background. I mean, just reflect on that as a South African for a moment. 16,000 teachers have a criminal background for crimes like murder, rape, assault. And we don't know where in the system these people are, Juanita?
That's a big problem. That report came out by the end of last year, and we were shocked when we learned that, because as the process stood, you as a school had to check and vet the people that you appoint to see if they are on that list or not. I realize, or we realize, it costs 150 Rand for each application, and then you can just see, yes, the person is on the list or they are not on the list, and this is just the sex offenders list. But it also took quite some time. I've heard that it took up to 6 weeks just to get the clearance or the answer back. But still, 16,000 educators working with children. And like you said, it's all types of crime. It's not petty crime. It's not somebody who swiped something from a shop when they were 16. It's murder. It is rape. It is offenses against children. It is so concerning. And if this register is available to the public, then you as a parent, the whole public, can make a decision if you want your children surrounded by somebody with a record like that. I just cannot understand why we must be tied by red tape so much, and why the privacy of a criminal weighs so much more than the safety of a child.
Yeah, 32,000 convicted offenders that are possibly on this national register for sex offenders, convicted. That needs to be, I need to highlight that word, convicted. So we certainly talk about what goes on in our schools, but in our very own communities, this is a reality. You know, there was many years ago the story of a toddler, Tasne van Wyk, playing in her own community, kidnapped and taken by a neighbor in the community, and later on it was found out that this is someone who was on parole for sex offenses. That little girl dead now, sadly, right? So it's not just about what's happening in our schools, but also right here at home, correct?
In the community, yes, that's it. I want to know who is living in my area. Should I keep my children inside? Should they not play outside and ride with their bicycle? It is such a big problem. And you've touched on so many things. Number one, the list, it says, or the spokesperson for the minister has said, there are around between 35 and 40,000 convicted sex offenders on the list. We don't know, we haven't seen it, and there's about 10,000 pending. But if you look at the crime stats of how many people are arrested, or it's mentioned in the crime stats for rape, for rape of children, for sexual offenses, then that doesn't match up to the convictions. So why do we have such a low rate of conviction? Why does it take 3.5 years for a court case to get to a conclusion and to possibly get to a conviction? We see that every day. We sit with the families. Yeah, we just spoke on Friday. We spoke to the family of Mia Botha, who was also, by all rumors, because we don't have the official police feedback, because they just don't give it to us or the family. She was sexually offended or abused. She was murdered. It is now 2.5 years later. The family doesn't know what's going on in the case. But what we've heard from the community, it's a person who's known for that. There were rumors that there was a DNA match. Why does it take 2.5 years? Because we have forensic backlogs. We have police who are so overcrowded by all the cases they have to investigate, the investigators. Everything is broken. So how can we expect to keep our children safe if everything is against them?
Yeah. What's the call to action? I mean, who needs to step it up at this point?
Well, at this moment, what we are suggesting, just looking at the forensic backlog, for example, but if we can start doing small things, then it can all add up to make a bigger whole, faster serving justice process. So what we are suggesting is a public-private partnership or a special task force within the police, working with the community, working with facilities like, for example, UCT, who has the ability to process forensic processes.
Yeah.
And so why not involve them? The labs that we have, they are overworked. So that is why it takes so long. So why not take in a facility who can do it, get everything set up, and start getting the wheels rolling? Because the faster you can get these people off the streets, out of the vicinity of our children, the faster it will be safer.
Yeah.
It makes sense to everybody except for the people who need to implement it.
Juanita, an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much, and keep us updated on efforts that you and steps that you take as well on your side. Juanita Preez, their operational manager at Action Society, speaking to us. Right, you're watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. Let's take a short break. More news on the other side. Welcome back. So ANC Secretary General Helen and the National Working Committee say the Free State was the epicenter of state capture. They today visited the province, and officials urged the current leadership to fight corruption ahead of next year's local government elections.
Free State was an epitome of what we call state capture. All sorts of corrupt activities came from here. Dairy farm, Guptas, they were here. And asbestos, all of those things come from here. This leadership, it is our duty to remind them that ANC have been voted in the Free State with that 51% to ensure that we undo all of these corrupt activities of the past. And we embark on the program that is decisive on servicing our people.
Mbalula has warned ANC members who bring the party into disrepute.
Municipalities, for their survival, they rely on revenue collection, and collection has not been up to speed. Where there's been incompetence in relation to employees, we must take decisive action on those. And those who give the ANC and give us a bad name when we have deployed them, we must deal with those decisively. and there must be no stage of time. Like people dancing with money, like as if with ANC colors. Those people must be dealt with.
So a Gauteng businesswoman who was allegedly raped at King's Beach in Gqeberha 14 years ago says she cannot recall what she said in her police statement. The trial of her alleged attacker, Moses Gqesha, is finally underway in the High Court. The defense grilled survivor Andy Gawa about her testimony in recollection of the 16-hour ordeal today. Proceedings were adjourned until tomorrow after the defense claimed the accused failed to take his medication, affecting his inhibitions.
Let us confine ourselves to the one who was reducing your statement, reducing your statement in writing. Warrant Officer Andrews. What I want to establish for you, Warrant Officer Andrews did allow you to have sight of your statement after he was done recording it.
My Lord, I was very confused, and I don't even think that I read it. I just said yes, because I had no understanding what a statement means. So I did not read, I did not understand what I was saying yes to. I just assumed that he knows his job, he knows what has to be written, and I said yes, because in my mind, I just was not in this world.